there, my name is Irene, and in this video we are going to talk about Revit's collaboration. An incredibly handy tool, but also a tricky one to understand fully. So let's get to it. Okay, so before we jump into the actual meat and potatoes of the video, we need to take a minute to talk a little bit about what this collaboration tool is, how does it work, what are the rules of engagement. So you will hear about this collaboration tool under two names, either BIM 360 or ACC. And the first thing to understand is that they're kind of the same thing, potato, patata, tomato, tomato. Both of them are going to be related to the collaboration within Revit. And the way that this collaboration works is it's basically a tool that allows multiple people to work in a same Revit file at the same time. Now, it may sound that it's similar to something like, for example, Google Docs, but it is not exactly the same. Because in Google Docs, for example, you can see your cursor and then you can see the other person cursor, and then both of you are doing things and you can see those changes happen in real time in your screen. Revit collaboration doesn't work like that for a very good reason. Instead, the way that it works is a little bit more like when you're working with external references, in the sense that you need to save and basically update for the other members of the team to be able to see the changes that you've done. Now, the reason that this is set up this way is because it's very important to understand that Revit collaboration was not really designed if it's just a team of 2 people or 3 people. It's not even designed for like a single team within a company. Revit collaboration, BIM 360, ACC, all of these tools have been designed for really large projects that require like collaboration from an array of consultants. So you are thinking not about a team of 2 people and that's it. You should be thinking about there's an interior design team that has 10 people, and then there's an architecture team that also has 10 people, and then there's the structural design team, and then there's the MEP team, and then there's all of these different consultants, and they're all working in the same project. They may not be working in the same file, but they're all working within the same project. So these collaborative tools are intended for really large projects with very big teams. So if you would have literally everyone working in a single file and you can see everyone's cursor at the same time, it would be spaghetti. You would not see anything. You would not be able to get anything done. So this is why you're going to see that when it comes to collaboration with Revit, there are certain procedures and steps that you have to follow for things to work correctly. Another important thing to understand about these collaboration tool is that despite the fact that the collaboration tools come integrated into Revit by default, that does not mean that you have collaboration de facto. Things like BIM 360 and ACC are cloud-based, which means that you have to have an account. So it is important to understand that like these collaborative tools, you have to acquire them separately from Revit. So it's basically 2 different products. You have Revit itself, and then you have the collaboration, cloud-based collaboration tools from BIM 360 and the ACC. And for the most part, anyone can get access to Revit, but not everyone can get access to these collaborative cloud-based accounts. So usually what's going to happen is that if you are working in a project that has cloud-based collaboration, what's going to happen is that your client or your boss or your company that you work with, they will give you access to the account. They will give you access to the product. They will set you up within a group. So there is a lot of setup that happens before you can work with ACC, BIM 360, Revit collaboration. Another important thing to understand is that because these are 2 products, it is important to understand who gets what. And by this, I mean that both when it comes to working with Revit and when it comes to working with the collaborative tools, they are going to be linked to an Autodesk account based on your email. So you have to understand that Autodesk doesn't know who you are as a person. Like I am Irene Gomez. Autodesk doesn't care. Autodesk just sees my email. They see if I have permission to use Revit, and then they let me use Revit. They see if I have permission to use collaborative tools, and then they give me access to the collaborative tools. So you have to really follow the instructions of your boss, employer, in my case, professor, who is going to tell you you will have access to BIM 360 through this specific email. Okay, so both the email that you use for Revit and the email that you use for collaboration have to be the same. If they are not the same, then you're going to get one but not the other. So you either just get access to Revit but you don't have access to the collaborative tools, or you get access to the collaborative tools but you don't have access to Revit. So it is super, super important that those 2 emails are the same. Now, let's say that for whatever reason, you're working in a project, you already got your Autodesk account already set up, and then you find out that the way that you have been added to a collaborative cloud-based project is with a different email. Now, this shouldn't be the case, but you know what? Like, I've been working with these tools long enough to tell you that everything is possible. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong. So what are the options there? Well, on the company end, like, you can always reach out to whoever has set up the accounts and let them know that like your Autodesk account has a different email than the one that they have set up for collaboration, and if they can update that. But due to company policies, Autodesk restrictions, sometimes it is not possible to make that change. So sometimes you will be told, no, you have to fix your Autodesk account. Now, the good news is that this is relatively easy depending on how you've done it. So I am logged in to my Autodesk account, and the easiest way is you can go to my profile and settings, and then you can go under security, and there you will see your username and your registered email. And what you can do is you can simply go to edit and you can change that email. Now, keep in mind that this is not an immediate process. Like, I can write here any other email, and then it's gonna send me a verification code to make sure that, you know, nothing illegal is happening. This process is not immediate, so it's not like you update your email and immediately it's good to go. In my experience, it usually can take like 24 hours to fully update. I don't know why. Now, let's say that you change the email to whatever one is the one that is associated with the collaborative account, and then it tells you that that email already is associated to an account. Yes, this is an extremely common thing that happens really, really often because people like to make many different accounts for Autodesk. So you may have an Autodesk account with your personal email, and then you may have an Autodesk account with your student email, and then you may have another one with your work email, and then you may have another one that is a burner because like God knows why you made that one, right? So if you have those multiple accounts, you have two options. Option one, you can go to whatever is the account that has the correct email, and you can go and you can verify with that one that like you can basically, you have access to collaboration with that one, so you can just get access to Revit on that one. Or option two, you can delete that account and then come back to this one, the one where you have access to Revit, and then you can update the email. Now, a little bit of a warning, deleting an account and then changing the email can take a while. My understanding is that it was supposed to take just like 5 days between deleting the account and then allowing you to change the email. But apparently now it's taking longer, something like 30 days or something, which is crazy. So if this is happening to you, then you want to make sure that you initiate this process to fix and basically align the account that you use Revit with and the account that you use collaboration with as soon as possible. Okay, but it's very, very important. It doesn't matter if both emails are connected to the same sender. Like, for example, I have a couple of emails for my business that are associated to the same kind of like Gmail account. So all of the emails from those two accounts go to the same inbox. But for the outside world, they are two different emails. So this is the important thing to understand. Like, you have to have exactly the email that has been attached. Autodesk doesn't know if those emails are associated, if those emails are the same person. For Autodesk, they're just two different people. So you need to consolidate your emails. Super important to understand. Now, I'm going to jump right into seeing how collaboration works within Revit, but I want to clarify that we are going to spend an entire other video talking about what BIM 360 is, what ACC is, how they look, how you can navigate through them, what to do, what not to do with them. But right now, I just want to focus on collaboration inside of Revit. Okay, so with that, let's jump into Revit. All right, so I'm starting this with the understanding that you have access to Revit, you have access to collaboration, so BIM 360, however it is called. So you should have received an email that tells you that you have access to these collaborative tools, again, BIM 360 or ACC or whatnot. You should have also received an email that tells you that you have been added to a collaborative group and you want to follow that link so you can go into that. But again, this is going to take you to a web-based window where you can kind of like web browse the group that you're collaborating in. I do not want to focus on that in this video. I want to focus just on how collaboration works when you are inside of Revit. So for this exercise here, I'm actually going to be working with two screens. I have my laptop here to the side. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide this between myself and Evil Irene. So Evil Irene will be in the laptop and I will be in the main computer. And that way I will be jumping in this video back and forth between what I see and what Evil Irene sees, or in your case, what you see and what your team member will see. So I'm starting with just a regular Revit file. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do some modeling. Now I'm going to keep it super simple because it doesn't really matter what I model. So I'm just going to make a wall. There you go. There is my wall. So traditionally, what we have been doing so far when it comes to working with Revit is when you're working with your project and you want to save it, you're going to go File, you're going to go Save As, you're going to go to Project, and then let's say I'm going to save it on my desktop, and this is going to be Collab 2025 because I'm working with Revit 2025, and there you go. So this is what you have been doing. So if you don't have collaborative tools and you're working in a team, basically what would have to happen is that if I am working with somebody else and I want them to work on this file, I would have to save the file, I would have to close the file, and then I would have to pass it to them. So maybe you have the file in a cloud-based storage like a Dropbox, OneDrive, Google Drive, which facilitates you don't have to email the file back and forth, but it's still going to have this limitation where for one of you to be able to work with the file, the other one has to leave, right? So what collaborative tools are going to allow us to do is not have to rely on that. So how is this going to work? Well, what I'm going to do is instead of just saving my file, I am going to save it. So you do need to have a kind of like a physical copy of the file in your computer before you can start with collaboration. I guess that it's like a fail-safe in case something goes wrong. There's always like an original. But basically what I'm going to do here is I am going to go on my tabs. I'm going to find my Collaborate tab, and this is what we are going to be working with. Now, there's a lot of buttons here that I'm not going to bother going through because these are like quite advanced stuff for, again, imagine really gigantic projects. So I'm not going to sweat this too much, and I'm going to focus just on the basics. So what we need to do here, first and foremost, is basically we need to upload this file on the cloud, on the BIM 360 or ACC, whatever the project setup is. I need to upload this file there. But there's a very important reason that I am not jumping on the web browser and going to BIM 360 or ACC. And that is because if you go there and you just kind of like drop the file like you would do with a Dropbox or a OneDrive or a Google Drive, that is not the correct way of working with it, and you will not be able to collaborate. If you just upload a file directly on the web browser view of the project, then it will not allow you and your team members to work on that file at the same time. It will just allow you all to access the file at the same time. So if you do it that way, basically you're gaining nothing. You're working with it the same way that you would work with a Dropbox, OneDrive, Google Drive, right? So if you and your team members want to be able to work on the same file at the same time, what we're going to do is in the Collaborate tab, we are going to search for the Collaborate button. So we're going to click here, and this is the first thing that you're going to see. Now, there are two forms of collaboration within your network and in the cloud. Within your network is basically if you work within a company that has its own servers and its own network, then you can basically have a file that is shared internally within the employees of the company. So imagine a company where you have an architecture department and you have an interior design department. And then basically what you are doing is you guys are all being able to access the same file. Now, the one that we are going to be focusing here is the cloud-based. So I'm going to be choosing in the cloud. So I'm going to click here, okay. And now you are going to see here at the very top, the name of the project that you have been added to. If you have multiple projects, then you will see the list of the multiple projects. But in this case, we're going here with this Irene collaboration project. Now, for me to save the file, I have to go into project files. And now you can see that it allows me to save the file. So I'm going to click here, save. And you can see that it's telling me that it's starting to Workshare this file. So again, we are talking about Worksharing. We are talking about being able to work on this file at the same time. This is going to take a little bit of time depending on how big the model is, depending on how good your internet connection is. But don't worry, be patient. And once it's done, you will see that it gives you check. If it gives you any errors, again, it might be that there's an internet connection problem or something like that. If when you went to collaborate, you saw that, for example, it didn't give you the option of the cloud or something like that, then again, the more likely scenario is that you have not signed in properly. So again, you need to make sure that the account that you have here at the very top has to be the same one that has been granted access to BIM 360 or ACC. If those are different, you're not going to have access to it. Okay, so I'm going to click close, and there you go. My file is now in the cloud. How can I confirm that it is in the cloud? Well, very simple. If I go back to my home page, you're going to see that here is my collab 2025. You can see that I actually have two files. So we're going to talk about this a little bit later. So if you want to see your cloud-based files, what we're going to do is going forward, we're no longer going to be working with these recent files because they don't show all of the information that we need. Instead, you're going to go to Autodesk Docs. So these are your cloud-based projects and the files that are saved within them. So you can see that once again, I am on my Irene collaboration project. And if I go here to project files, you will see that the file has effectively been uploaded. You will also see important information such as the fact that this is a work shared cloud model. So that means that it's a model that is in the cloud and that it has been set up for work sharing, basically collaborative work. You can see when it was modified last, by whom, because again, remember, you're going to have multiple people working in this project. You need to know who has done what. You will see if the latest one has been published. We're going to talk about that publishing a little bit later, and then the published date and published by whom. You are going to also, if you expand here, there's additional information that we are going to see a little bit later. So I'm going to leave that for a second, and now I'm going to jump to Evil Irene's account. So if you look at my Evil Irene's screen, what you're going to see is that once again, like the file is not going to pop here on my recent files. But if I go to my Autodesk Docs, you will see that I have the same project. Now, here right now, it's telling me that the folder is empty. Do not panic. You have this little wheel here on the right side that is going to allow you to refresh. And once I refresh, there it is. I can see the project that Irene uploaded for me. And if I click here, that is going to basically give me access to the file where I am not just going to be able to see the file, but I'm also going to be able to work on the file. Okay. Now, again, these can take a little bit of time depending on the size of the project and your internet connection. But there we are. We are in. Okay. So now you cannot see each other's cursor. This is the important thing to understand. These are like, you're not going to see in real time what each other are doing. So now this is where things get interesting. How are we going to do this collaboration? Because again, you want to think about this more as when you are working with an external reference, with a linked file, where if you make a change in the linked file, you're not going to immediately see that change, right? You have to save, and then you have to go to the program where the file has been linked, and then you have to update. So the same thing is going to happen here. So for example, if Evil Irene wants to make a change to this project, so let's say I'm going to draw a wall here. Let's say we're going to put it here. Just me drawing the wall isn't going to do anything. Again, this is just happening in my computer. If I want Irene to see it, I need to basically update. So this is going to be a two-step process. So what's going to happen now is that instead of using the save button, which is what we have been using up to this point when we're working with our projects, what I am going to do instead is I'm going to go to my Collaborate tab, and I'm going to go here where it says Synchronize and Modify Settings. We're just going to synchronize. So I'm going to synchronize here, and it's going to give me this window here. So this window here is basically telling me like, okay, this is the file that will be updated. Pay attention to the fact that it is in Autodesk Docs. So this is not saved in your computer. Also pay attention to the fact that it is in the Irene collaboration project and then collab. Now, these options here, unless you have messed up with things in a way that you shouldn't have to press any buttons here. You should be able to just leave it as it is. So I just want to click my Synchronize with Central, and I'm going to click OK. And you can see that it is saving to local, reload latest, save to central, save to local. Okay, so that is part one. If we jump to Irene's screen, you will see that nothing has changed. It is looking exactly the same. And that is because, again, it's a two-step process. So Evil Irene has to synchronize her changes, and now regular Irene has to basically update. So the way that we are going to update when we are working with Revit collaboration is clicking here where it says reload latest. So you do not need to close and reopen the file. You can just reload and bam, there is my wall. Okay, so this is basically the way that we are going to be working with it. It's a back and forth. It's not going to be automatic. So whoever has made changes has to update those changes by synchronizing, and then whoever has not seen those changes has to reload the latest. Now, what happens if two persons make a change at the same time. So let's say that regular Irene is going to come here and it's going to draw another wall here on the top. And then evil Irene is going to come here and she's going to draw a wall here at the bottom. So now you can see that there's different information in each screen. So again, the updates are not automatic. So what's going to happen is that both parties have to update and reload. So I'm going to go synchronize with regular Irene. Okay. And then I'm going to go synchronize with evil Irene. Okay, right? Because both parties did changes and you can immediately see that it has shown me the update from regular Irene. There are no changes. It already updated. So when I synchronize, it updated. So the regular Irene is still not seeing the changes that evil Irene did. So we're going to reload latest and there you go. See? So both of you can all of you, if you're 100 people, all of you can be working in the project. All that matters is that you need to make sure that all parties synchronize and reload. If you do not see somebody else's work, it's probably because you haven't reloaded. If some other people cannot see the changes that you have made, it's because you haven't synchronized, okay? Now, very, very important. There is a limitation to this, and that is the fact that you cannot have two people or more making changes to the same entity, because that will create a conflict. So let's say, for example, that regular Irene is going to take this wall and is going to move it. So I'm going to, MV, there you go. So regular Irene is going to move this wall. And then evil Irene, who's not communicating with regular Irene because she's evil, she's just going to delete this wall, right? So now we have these problems here, and you're going to immediately see the problem. You can see that I've gotten a message here that says, hey, you cannot edit this element until regular Irene resaves the element to central and relinquishes and you re-upload latest. We're going to talk about what relinquishing is. But what I want to show you here is that if somebody has messed up with a geometry or an element in the model, the other people will not be able to work with that element until the other person has synchronized. Because basically you're given two instructions to Revit about what to do with a single item. And Revit is basically saying like, well, this person went first. So unless they decide that they want to do something different, like I am taking their change first. See? So all I can do here is either cancel or I can place a request that like I want to be able to be the one who changes that. Okay? So the only rules, so see, if I come here and I say collaborate and then I say synchronize and then I say okay, and then I come back here and I say reload. So the only limitation that you really have by default with these collaborative tools is that you cannot have two or more people working with the same exact geometry. Okay, if both of you work with the same geometry, it's going to basically take whatever change was made first and it's going to lock you there until the original party synchronizes. Okay, so very, very important. If we go to 3D views, one interesting thing that you're going to notice is that 3D views are designated by the user. So if I come here and I create two 3D views, basically one is evil Irene and one is regular Irene, what you're going to see is that basically they're like saved separately. So if I go here and I synchronize, and I say okay, and I go here and I synchronize and I say okay, what you are going to see, let's give it a second, is that let's reload the latest here. What you're going to see is that now there are two default 3D views, and this should shock you a little bit because by default in Revit there is only one kind of like bracket 3D view. But what's happening here is that it's basically saying each member gets their own 3D view. But this is the beauty of working with collaboration. You can have X number of people working on the same file, as long as you are coordinating and you are saying, you're going to take care of this, 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 there should be absolutely no issues. Again, if you start getting errors that tell you like, oh, you cannot do this change because this person is working with that, then that means that you're trying to make a change to a geometry that they are working with or that they have already made change. Just two. And what needs to happen is that they need to synchronize and then you need to reload latest. Now, the last thing that I want to do in this video is address a little bit of confusion that you may get, because if you go to your homepage and we go back to recent files, you're going to see that I have these collab 2025 and then I have these collab 2025 again. So what is going on there? So number one, again, if you're going to be working with collaboration, you should not be opening files from here. You should be going to your Autodesk docs. That is the correct way of doing it. What is it that we're getting here? Well, what's happening here is that if you remember, I mentioned the fact that in order for you to be able to work with collaboration, you have to first save the file in your computer. And you can see that in this case, if I hover, it's telling me that the save path for this file is C users OneDrive desktop collab 2025. If I go to this guy over here, you're going to see that it has that little box with a cloud. That is the symbol that this is a file for collaboration and that it is in the cloud currently. And you can see on the save path that it is in Autodesk Docs, and then my Irene collaboration project and collab 2025. So basically, these are now two different files, one that is in your computer and one that is in the cloud. So the reason that I'm bringing this up is because a very common confusion that people have is that they will be working with their project and they will click on the save button. So it is important to understand that the save button doesn't really do anything anymore. In the sense that if you want to save your file to the cloud, the only way that you're going to do that is by synchronizing. The save button is not going to put it on the cloud, right? So if I come here and I make a change, let's say I'm going to put this guy here and I click the save button, what you're going to see is that if I come here and I try to close the file, Revit is going to tell me, hey, you made a change, but you did not synchronize because again, this is not saving. So what I can do here is I can say, yes, please synchronize this. So it will synchronize the model and allow other users to view the changes, or I can just close the project without synchronizing the changes with the central model. So if I choose the second option, it's just not going to save my changes. I'm going to lose this, right? So why am I bringing this up? Because sometimes people will want to work with their files separately. Basically, you want to maybe play with the model. You want to do some stuff. Now, personally, I don't really recommend this unless you're really, really sure, because basically what you're going to see is that in order for you to separate your file, what you have to do is you have to detach. And this is basically going to create a branching. So this is going to become an offshoot, a completely separate file. If you want to, who am I to stop you? So how do we create these branch off? Well, we are going to open our cloud-based model, our synchronized cloud-based model. And what we're going to do is instead of saving, you can go and say save as. So I can come here, save project. You made some changes that have not been synced. If you proceed with saving, the cloud model will not include. See, basically this is telling me, hey, you're going to start branching out. Okay. Just so you know, right? So I'm going to say, yes, that's exactly what I want. Now remember, this one was my original, the first one that I saved on my computer. And now I'm going to create this new one, which I'm going to call, let's call it 0.1, right? Very creative name. I know. I'm going to save it here. And now what you're going to see, if I go back to my homepage and I go back to my recent files, is that now I have 3 files. It gets confusing. So this is my original file that I started with that was saved in the computer. This with the little cube and the little cloud is my Workshare cloud model. This is the one that lives in the cloud, that all of my team members have access to, that we can work share and is saved in the cloud. And now here, this guy's a little weirdo because it is somewhat connected to the central file, like it started from it. So you can see that the save path has changed. It is now on my C drive. So it is in my computer and it has basically created a copy. So this guy is no longer really connected with central. So what's going to happen here is that if I open this guy, so let's go back to this guy again, what's going to happen here is that if I go to collaborate and I go to synchronize, even if it looks like it's synchronizing and everything is fine, it's not actually really synchronizing. If I go to my homepage and I go to my Autodesk Docs and I refresh this guy here, you're going to see that it's not there. It's missing. So very, very important. If you create a save as file of a cloud-based project, that is going to be a branch out. Now, again, sometimes people do this because they want to try things out without having to worry about synchronizing and reloading and blah, blah, blah. But keep in mind that if you do this and you then want to consolidate your projects, you're not going to be able to. So you're going to be stuck in this situation where people basically open both files, like the cloud-based and the saved as, and you have to copy paste stuff between them. And this is not really good because there are certain things that you cannot copy paste. You cannot copy paste views. You cannot copy paste sheets. You cannot copy paste certain geometries such as staircases. I think there's some geometry that is like locked in the project that they're on. So this is not really ideal. So the only scenario in which you want to do the save as is if you want to detach. So detach basically means that you want to completely separate these file from your cloud-based project. So how does this work? Well, I'm going to close this guy here. And the first step is what we did, which was do these save as. And what we're going to do this time is instead of clicking on the file to open it, we're going to go instead to models and open. And we're going to find our file, which is this guy here. And the reason that we do it this way is because through this window, we can check here that we want to detach this file from central. So I'm going to check this guy, detach from central, and then I'm going to go open. So it's telling me, okay, so you're going to be detaching this file. Do you want to preserve work sets? Yes or no? If you're going to be working with an entirely detached file, my assumption is that you want to discard work sets. We're going to talk about work sets and then it might make more sense. But to me, the default is always to discard work sets. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to discard them. And there you go. So this is step one. If you look at the name of the file, it's collab 2025.1 detach. The final step here is that we need to save, because this is now a new file, right? We had collab 2025, that's it. Then we had collab 2025.1, and now we have these collab 2025.1 detach. So I have to go file, and I'm going to go save. And you're going to see how this guy's called detach, which is fine. I'm just going to leave that. I can later change the name. That's fine. But now when I go back to my homepage, you're going to see that now you have, see how this guy doesn't have the little cube, doesn't have the cloud, doesn't have anything. So this guy has come back to the original format where it's just saved on your computer. Now, what are we supposed to do with this guy? Well, this guy is still somewhat connected to your project, but not really. So if, let's say, for whatever reason, you're like, no, I really want to work with this one and I want to have it in my cloud, the important thing to understand is that you can't just merge these two guys together. Again, this is when people will basically just open both files and copy from one to the other. So instead, if you want this guy to be a part of your cloud-based project, you're going to click on it and see, by opening the central model, you will create a local copy of it. So see, this file is just, it's no longer in the cloud. This is local. This is in your computer. To open the central model directly, click open and navigate to the central model. See, so if I want to open this guy as the central model, I would have to go to open. I would have to select this guy. Again, remember, this is the not fully detached, let's say, and see how it says here, create new local. So I could come here and say, nope, turn that off. I do not want to create a new local file. And I'm going to go here, open, and that is going to open it. But again, keep in mind, if I come here and I go collaborate and I go synchronize with central and I go, okay, this is not gonna do anything because this 2025.1 is not on my cloud. See, if I come here, let's make an actual change so you can see it. Let's say I'm going to delete this guy here and I synchronize it. And I say, okay, you're going to see when we come here and I upload that no change is going to show. Because again, that guy is not in the cloud. That's why you just see the little box, but you don't see the cloud. So if I want it to be in the cloud, what I need to do is I need to do my collaborate in cloud process again. Basically, I have to upload it as a separate file. See, so it's like I have my 2025.1. If I delete the 0.1, it's going to tell me, no, you cannot. That file already exists. So this is why doing a save as doesn't feel like a smart thing in my mind. Like maybe you have your reasons. Maybe there's a good scenario. I cannot imagine that good scenario. So in my mind, if you are working with collaboration, you just synchronize going forward. There is no reason for you to save as. See, once I've done this and I come here and I refresh this guy, you will see that now there are my two files. Now, the last thing that I want to address is this here. See how it says latest published, update available? So this is an important thing to understand because basically what happens, and this gets into BIM management. I am not going to go into BIM management in this video. That is a whole can of worms for like when you are much more experienced with Revit. But basically the idea is that these collaboration that you have been doing where you synchronize and you update, this is internal. So these are the kind of updates that you and the members of your team would be working with. But again, remember, these collaborative tools are designed for gigantic projects where you have multiple consultants working in the same project. So the idea of publishing is that basically when you go to the web-based version of the project, you are only going to, like basically the other teams can only see the files that you have published. If a file has not been published, then you're not going to see it. So see, this guy here is telling me that, hey, you've been working in this file, but you have not published it so other people from other teams but within the same project can see it. So we're going to see what this means in another video, which is going to be about how that web browser based BIM 360 ACC look like, what are their limitations, what are their advantages, and basically how do they work. But for all intents and purposes, what we have done at this point is all you really need to know in order to be able to work with work sharing and collaborative tools in Revit. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please give it a like. If you have any questions, by all means, feel free to add them in the comments. But otherwise, thank you very much for joining in. Thank you very much for sticking through, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good one. Bye.